don't know who I am, but I know all about you. I've come to talk to you tonight about the things I've seen you do. I've come to set the record straight. I've come to shine the light on. Let me introduce myself. I am the cold hard truth.
Okay, folks, it is showtime. Just a reminder that if you are not messaging me in reference to something show related, it is now 7 o'clock. So we got to do this show. And let me see here. Just checking a few things. Okay. All right, so good evening, one. Good evening, all. Hope you guys are doing good. Let's see what's been going on. Today has been a very interesting day. As you guys know, we did a live stream this morning in our shower cap, and it was interesting. You know what is so crazy is some people were more bothered by the fact that I was wearing a shower cap, which to me is kind of amusing, than the substance of the conversation. Listen, sometimes you just gotta be like homegrown gangster style. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing something in your shower cap. It is what it is. It was an issue that was important for me to address. But you know, someone said to me earlier today, and I think sometimes this is good advice, there are times when you just don't continue addressing people. You just leave it alone, because you know that the people who are coming at you are just trolls who are waiting for some kind of an opportunity to have something to say. And so when they see that little thing that they think, oh yeah, I can now super nitpick on this, they're gonna start having all kind of dialogue. And by engaging with them, you know, with the comments and trying to even defend yourself, like Shakespeare said, thou protest too much. So at some point you just have to cut the conversation. So we're not even going to discuss it tonight. We did it this morning. It's done and over with. It's all good. So let's keep it moving. The coronavirus situation continues to get interesting. We spent the entire show actually on Tuesday discussing that. So I want to switch gears a little bit. We are going to put up a video, which, by the way, if you guys have not realized, we're doing a soft launch of, we just got another press release recently from the Port Authority. I'm just going to try to send my web guy this real quick so that he can add this video for me. Yeah, so Mr. Acting Director Joseph Woods issued a statement about the port because someone was sending around a voice note on WhatsApp saying that, you know, there's going to be some kind of quarantining at the port and ships may not be coming in. And as a result of that, we're going to have a shortage of food. I heard actually on Tuesday that there was a run in the grocery stores, like the grocery stores were so busy. So I think people are getting a little bit paranoid. You know, this is an unusual occurrence in terms of, you know, how quickly it's spreading and how many persons are getting infected. But at the same time, it isn't the worst case that we've had of the coronavirus. And so I think we need to just be measured in our response to the ongoing situation. There is no need to panic. You don't need to make a run on the grocery store and buy out every single thing at Foster's or Kirk's or whatever. So let's talk politics tonight. Politics got very, very interesting again. Vanessa, good evening, and thank you so much for joining the program. So I want to know, tomorrow is going to be 2 weeks since the incident with Mr. McKeeva Bush and the bar manager who was assaulted. Someone commented today or yesterday that, all of this that you guys are doing, it's like too much. You got to let it go or something. And I just really want to ask, hi, Nancy, an honest question of those of you who are watching this show this evening. Have you ever been the victim of an attack? It doesn't necessarily have to be someone that you know. It doesn't have to be in a domestic situation. And it certainly doesn't have to be a politician that attacked you. But has anyone ever, without any real provocation, attacked you, physically beaten you up, giving you bruises and that sort of thing? Like, I'm curious how many of us have gone through a situation where we have actually been battered. So technically assault is verbally, so I can assault you with my words. And then battery is the physical act of hitting you, spitting on you, punching on you, that sort of thing. And I'm kind of curious, I don't necessarily want you guys to, I know a lot of you in IG are saying no. I wasn't necessarily saying that you had to respond, but I was just kind of getting you guys to think a little bit about that. And, if you were victimized, perhaps you can understand the response that even the victim, how she must be feeling in all of this, especially in a small community such as the Cayman Islands. And then when it happens to be someone in a position of power, just thinking about it for a minute, you could understand how that changes the dynamics of everything that transpired. And so the opposition, I think they took a minute to respond, but now that they have responded, they're really standing their ground and they're saying, listen, they are in support of the victim. They're in support of the hashtag She Supported movement. And unfortunately, because on Monday, Mr. Kenneth Bryan took the position that he wanted the resolution of the criminal and court side of things before he was prepared to do anything, they have now parted ways with him. And I think it's an unfortunate situation, but what is interesting about this is the second time that the opposition has parted ways with Kenneth, who, as you guys know, is the MLA for Georgetown Central. And the irony of it is both times it has been over McKeeva Bush, him allegedly assaulting a woman, the members of the LA, the opposition, wanting to do something about that. And both times Kenneth has said, no, we have to wait for the process to play out, the legal process, which, as you know, can take years. So the first one was in the summer of 2017. You guys remember that Mr. Bush was accused and charged and everything with touching a woman on her buttocks, a woman that worked in a casino. There was some video footage of that. And eventually the charges were dropped because it seems like the complainant wasn't willing to move forward and they just dropped them. So that was summer 2017. He was kicked out of the opposition then. I can't remember if he resigned or he was kicked out, but they had a parting of the ways at that time in like September, I think it was, over Mr. Bush. And then it's like a little bit of a broken record because here we are again dealing with the exact same thing. Kenneth has taken one position. Everybody else is saying, listen, and I'm going to read you some of their statement here in a second. Because I think it is worth understanding their position. We have Kenneth's position from Monday, and we can go through some of his statement as well. But basically, they've said his refusal to support the opposition members who want to call a special meeting of the Legislative Assembly to discuss the implication of the Speaker's statement issued on February the 24th. And remember, the Speaker issued a statement pretty much copying to it, saying that he doesn't remember, but he's told that he assaulted this woman, that he assaulted staff, and he was apologetic. And, the reason why it happened is he's been grief-stricken for the past 9 years, and he's not been able to handle that properly, and he needs professional help, and he has mental health issues, and, all of that was in his letter. So they explained the logistics of what's required to call such a meeting, what the standing orders require. And basically they said by blocking the opposition's ability to request a special meeting, the country is deprived of the opportunity to hear from the very people they elected to represent them. The matters to be discussed are serious ones. Firstly, there's the matter of the conduct of the Speaker of the House and admission of his own impairment and where he passed out in a public place. Secondly, is the subsequent unilateral grant of leave to the Speaker by the Premier, which may or may not be constitutionally permissible. And lastly, perhaps most importantly, we have an opportunity to set the record straight as to what we, the members of the Legislative Assembly, believe to be the right and what the public should expect from their elected officials. So that's part of what they said. I'm going to read some more here in a little bit, but I do want to read some of your comments. I saw on IG that someone said that they had been verbally attacked. So let me just read some of your comments. Give me 1 second here. Let me just see. So one person here says, you don't need to let it go. Speak up. It's wrong what he did. It needs to be known. Another person said, thank God. So in other words, they've never been, assaulted. I don't know what Kadian is saying. We're going to skip that for now. Did she ask you to join? No. Okay. So, no one has actually said, and I mean, like I said, I'm not actually expecting a victim to come out and say that they have been assaulted, but we know that there are a lot of people on a daily basis who are subjected to this type of behavior where they are assaulted by people known to them, as well as sometimes people who are not even known to them. So the opposition goes on to say that the most recent incident, so they talk about the fact that, the most recent incident involving the Speaker of the House, yet another in a long list of public incidents which embarrassed this country, was a tipping point in the local community. And the community is incensed with the double standard, where too often people in position of power and privilege in this community operate to a different standard of rules and appear to get away with things the average citizen could never get away with. If the government is comfortable with this, leaving the public with this view, we as opposition certainly are not. So they've gotten quotes from Chris Saunders, Alva Saku, Bernie Bush, leader of the opposition, Arden McLean, and basically they were all prepared to join forces with Mr. Miller from Northside to get this done. So Kenneth was the last man out. And unfortunately for them, that prohibits them from actually coming together as a group and calling this special meeting of the Legislative Assembly. So here's what we know. I've been getting some additional questions about this, and I wanted to clarify a few things. Because as you all know, bits and pieces of information comes through, as things happen, we get additional information. And sometimes the first bit of information we have the generalities of what happened. We have some details, but not a whole lot. So one of the things about this whole situation that has been very perplexing is everyone is saying, where is the video? So everyone wants to view the video, essentially. And the initial discourse that we had received said that, listen, this happened in a very public environment. And so the thinking was, if that's the case, surely someone would have pulled out their phone, as we all do, and that's how we get so much information here on Cayman Mall Road. And someone would have recorded what transpired outside of just the security cameras at the facility. So what we have learned last week, actually, Friday of last week, is the fact that that's not quite what happened. So yes, the facility, the overall restaurant had, the bar had a lot of people there, but Mr. Bush had actually gotten up from his table or where he was and gone towards the kitchen. So when he said, and this makes total sense in context of what he said, right? So when he said that he went to get food, initially we were thinking that what he meant was he just stopped in there to get some food. And in truth, what happened was he got up from where he was and was going to the kitchen to get food in an area that only staff members would be. And so the incident actually happened in front of a smaller group of individuals. So we understand that it might have only been 6 persons or so that were actually present. And so the video that they would have been relying on as, evidence of what transpired was actually the company's video. So from their CCTV cameras, in other words. So the CCTV footage, my sources said that they originally had obtained a copy of it. And then last week, Friday, they actually went and retrieved the hard drive. So they got the source of the videos, because if they need to move forward with the prosecution, they need like the source of whatever evidence they're seeking to rely upon. And so that changes things a little bit. And that explains then in a very logical fashion why the general public wouldn't have seen a video of this incident, because it was in a staff only kind of area going inside of the kitchen. So of course, staff members would not necessarily have had their phone, their recording. I'm sure they're all afraid of losing their jobs. So they probably would not have pulled out their phones in any event. So just a recap, we know that Mr. Bush's son is one of 4 Caymanian gentlemen that own the facility. And we obviously haven't heard from him. He's a private citizen. He, to the best of my knowledge, has no involvement in politics per se. He's probably quite embarrassed by this whole situation. Even from a business perspective, this just doesn't look good on so many fronts. So that explains that part of it. There has been no arrest yet, to the best of our knowledge. Mr. Bush returned to the islands Saturday over the weekend from a trip to the UK. We're still waiting on the police to make some kind of an indication or move of what they intend to do. So we will have to wait until that happens. But with this type of offense, normally what I suspect they will do, and especially someone like Mr. Bush, is they're going to call his lawyer and say, listen, this is what's going on. You need to come in to now be officially charged, or they're just going to summons him to court, because they don't have to come and put you in handcuffs and drag you out the door. They can actually just issue a summons, say, this is your court date, this is when you need to appear, and then they move forward with the process there of charging you, and you answer to the actual charges in court. So we'll see how that plays out and what happens in terms of that part of it. Now, the thing that I want to know, Donna says Kenneth is only one of 18 members. Do you guys think, and Kenneth said that he had spoken to his constituents, Georgetown Central, and they had guided him in his decision. And I don't remember if he said he spoke to other advisors or not, but, he's being advised by other people that this is the right and prudent thing to do. Nancy says, having been verbally attacked, no matter how well you handle it, it affects you emotionally and stays with you forever. And Nancy, I totally think that, and I agree with that. And I want to share something with you guys as well. A lot of people have this thing in their head with victims. Why didn't the victim report, not this particular case, but just in general, always questioning, well, why didn't the victim do this? Why haven't we heard from the victim? Why didn't the victim, report an assault that happened 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago? And it's like, we're always going after the victim. Why didn't the victim do this? Why didn't the victim do that? And it's like, what about the perpetrator? The one who has created this entire situation and who has placed the victim in this position to begin with. What about that person? Why is it that we feel it necessary to put all of the responsibility and the burden on the victim, as Nancy rightfully said, who is already traumatized by what they have gone through? And the reason why we do it is because a lot of us in our minds want to do what's called victim blaming. And that is a way of trying to blame the victim by putting undue pressure on them, undue responsibility on them. So I think that is something that we all have to check ourselves with and perhaps carefully consider why we even think that way. And the other thing that's interesting, everyone has in their minds how they would respond to a situation like this. Most Caribbean people would be like, boy, he wouldn't do that to me, and I would box him down and blah, blah, blah. We're like, he wouldn't try it with me. We all think that. And we all think we know how we're going to respond until you're actually in the situation. And I'm going to share a link with you guys in this chat of the show, which I hope you guys will go back and listen to at some point. But there's a show on NPR, National Public Radio. And if you're not a fan of NPR, can I tell you, you are totally missing out. They have such interesting programming. And not only do they have super interesting programming, but they also have a lot of pieces that really make you think about, life, decisions, how we think, how we process information. Like, they really put a lot of effort into the programs that they do. And there's one particular show called Hidden Brain that I find absolutely fascinating, that looks at, a lot of ways that we think. And one of the shows that they did in December, it was sometime in late December, was about how we react under sort of stressful situations. And it talked, for example, about a woman who was in an interviewing situation being asked very inappropriate questions that should never have been asked of her. And going into the interview, had you asked her beforehand, oh, somebody asked you this question, how would you respond? Well, I would tell them that that's against my rights and you're not supposed to ask me that question and and yeah, I'm going to stand my ground. But when push comes to shove and you're actually in the situation, you react far differently than you anticipated that you would react. I think it's such an interesting sort of concept, first of all. So I'll share the podcast. You guys can go and listen to it when you have time. But it is super, super interesting. And I think that it opens up a whole slew of questions because, again, we always want to talk about, well, the victim should have done this, the victim should have done that. But we cannot say for ourselves, even, honestly, if we understand how the brain works and the psychology of a lot of the things that we do, we can't swear for anything. We can't say that that's exactly what we would have done. Because time and time again, it's been proven that actually you're not going to respond the way in which you think you're going to respond. Ruby, watching from Florida, thank you so much. Donna makes the point that Kenneth is only one of 18 members. The problem with that, Donna, is the government, the coalition government, which has the majority of the 18 members, they're bunkered together and they're holding ranks. So again, we've said on multiple occasions, not a single female representative, and we only have 3, have spoken out about this issue. So Barbara Conley has not said anything. Tara Rivers has not said anything. Juliana O'Connor Conley has not said anything. And I'm positive that they're taking their instructions from Alden McLaughlin, who's like, you know what? The last incident blew over. So let's just wait this one out. You know, the election is next year. We're coming into the last 18 months. Before you know it, the people are going to forget. And that's what they're counting on. You're going to forget all about this and you're going to turn around and vote them right back in. So their position as the majority of the Legislative Assembly is to say nothing, essentially, and to do nothing. And when you look at the few members that have issued a public statement, it basically said a whole lot of nothing. It was like words just to put on a piece of paper to make you think they were actually saying something. And as the opposition has said in their response today, even the response right now of, you know, kind of taking this position that we're going to wait until the legal process has played out, knowing who Mr. Bush is, a lot of people have no faith that the legal process will be unencumbered and fair and people will actually get justice. People think that legal, the DPP's office, is not going to charge him and absolutely nothing is going to come of this. That's the opinion on the street. Arthur says, what if the lady doesn't press charges? Will the case go forward? Well, here's the thing, Arthur. That's a good legal question. And I have been informed that if they have independent evidence that an assault took place, which, by the way, he's actually admitted to. This is the crazy part about it, right? He has admitted in his letter that an assault took place. So to me, an admission, a public admission of guilt is a public admission of guilt. And that can certainly be utilized in a court of law. What's he going to do? Go to court and change that story and say that that's not what happened? I don't know. But they don't need her if they have all of, you know, this additional information. They've got other eyewitnesses who saw what happened. They have her initial police report from that night. So I don't know what else they require of her or what else she would need to do. You know, they shouldn't need her to testify. They should be able to take that report, take his statement, take the CCTV footage, put it all together. And really the only sensible conclusion that you could come to is that an assault actually took place. So Dominic says at least one of the members of the sitting government should be guided by their God-given conscience and then integrity on this. I don't know much about the facts of this, but this is unheard of from a sitting Speaker of the House. Big Mac is my brother. We are human family. So unfortunately, Dominique, none of the ruling government are going to do anything. You cannot expect a single one of them to stand up and be driven, as you say, by their God-given conscience or their integrity on this issue. They are more concerned about political expediency. So in other words, they need to keep this government together, which was formed with the assistance of Mr. Bush. And they will do that at all cost. Like a lot of people are beginning to feel like, you know how Donald Trump said that he could literally commit murder, he could kill someone and he would be untouchable? A lot of people are beginning to feel that that's how the situation is going to play out. And that's what this government is prepared to do. They're prepared to allow a woman to be assaulted and then do nothing about it in real terms. Pretend to care, pretend to, oh yeah, we'll give him a leave of absence, which doesn't even exist. He's still getting paid. Nothing has changed. He's just not working for the paycheck. Cameron, if there were charges, then it would be wait till the case is over, laughing out loud. Yeah, I mean, Kenneth's statement, I want to go and read his statement because I think, you know, to be fair to him, let's have a look at what Kenneth said. Now, I know he was on the show this morning, which unfortunately I did not get to hear with Woody. But let's just have a look at what Kenneth actually said in his statement. So this was issued on Monday. So apparently on, and again, if you guys haven't had a chance to read this, I'm going to post this up. Apparently on Sunday, after, as Admiral suggested on Friday, that the opposition and all backbench members come together and consider actually removing Mr. Bush from public office, that it would be a good idea to have the special session of the House so that they could look at the possibility of calling a vote of no confidence. And that would be one way in which they could remove him. So they had back and forth, from my understanding, late on Sunday evening. Kenneth was the sole one again holding out. My sources told me he left the meeting saying that he would think about it, that although he was holding out, he wouldn't give a final decision. He was going to think about it, and then he would advise them of his decision sometime on Monday. And apparently what they have said is they were advised of his decision just like everybody else when they saw it in the media, when he issued his statement, that he was going to wait until there are further developments in the case. A lot of people are confused and perplexed by Kenneth's position, but this is what he said. The elected member of Northside has made a public request for the members of the opposition to support a call for a special meeting of the Legislative Assembly to vote to have the Honorable W. McKeeva Bush removed from his post as Speaker of the House. This request comes in the back of a recent incident that occurred on February the 21st, where the Speaker is alleged to have assaulted a female member of staff at a liquor license establishment on West Bay Road. And it's interesting that he says alleged, because we saw the letter from Mr. Bush, where Mr. Bush actually admits that he was. He goes on to say, by now, most of you have seen or heard reports of the incident in question. I acknowledge the intention of Mr. Miller to safeguard the reputation of the Legislative Assembly, but I believe the request for the Speaker to be removed is premature in light of limited information and with an ongoing investigation by police as to what exactly happened. So that summarizes Kenneth's position. Again, he said it before with the last incident, and he's saying it again. Basically, he's not comfortable making any decision because he feels like he has limited information. So the thing about it, though, is when the Speaker actually issued his statement, which was days in advance of this, wouldn't that have provided you with enough? Like, how is that still limited? Like, at this point, you know an assault took place. The only thing that's in question is whether he really did remember it or not, and he's just pretending to not be able to remember it. He says, Kenneth goes on to say, I also believe that it's important that we allow the capable police commissioner and his staff to conduct their investigations and reveal their findings by way of action or inaction by their department. So essentially, he is trusting and putting his faith in the RCIPS to bring the justice down, not just on the legal front, but essentially whatever happens in that arena, he believes should impact the political decisions. So, the question then becomes, and this is where perhaps we can have some real discussion and engaging you guys, is do you believe that an elected official has to be convicted of a crime in order to be seen as unfit for public office, removed from public office, or given a vote of no confidence? Now, we've seen votes of no confidences before. Two instances that come to my mind would be, there was one with Kurt Tibbetts many, many years ago. McKeeva Bush, ironically, called that vote of no confidence against Kurt Tibbetts, threw Kurt Tibbetts out of office, and took over the government so that he could become leader of government business. Kurt Tibbetts was relegated to the backbench, and he formed a whole new government. That was done. I can't remember what year it was now, but that was done. And get the irony of this, that was done by Mr. Bush, the same Mr. McKeeva Bush. And it wasn't that Kurt Tibbetts had beaten anybody up. Kurt Tibbetts hadn't assaulted anyone. It was, oh, he's drunk. He's always out drinking. Like I said, this is beyond ironic. He's always out drinking. He's always showing himself to be a poor leader in public. The country's not doing so good, blah, blah, blah. And so McKeeva Bush himself has done a vote of no confidence against Kurt Tibbetts. I'm going to try to, sorry, get some information on when this happened. I'm trying to remember the exact dates. I think it was early 2000s. Here we go. On November the 8th, 2001, legislators led by McKeeva Bush voted to oust Kurt Tibbetts as leader of government, saying that he had not done enough to counter a slowing economy. 9 of the 50 elected members voted to remove Mr. Bush as leader of the of government business, which would have been like the equivalent of the premier at the time. The legislators who had been independently formed, this is when it was the United Democratic Party with Bush and a leader. And then as part of the changes to the Assembly's Executive Council, legislators also removed Tibbetts supporter Edna Moyle as Minister of Community Development and Women's Affairs. And Tibbetts said during debate on the motion that he had no choice but to accept the result of the vote, but said the island should restructure the system so that the leadership cannot be so easily removed. So in 2001, for far less than what is now being alleged, and people in this country have a very short memory. This was 19 years ago. McKeeva Bush himself removed Kurt Tibbetts from office so that from 2001 to May of 2005, Kurt Tibbetts served as leader of the opposition after he was ousted by McKeeva Bush. Ironic now that Mr. Bush has found himself in a predicament, in a situation where he does not obviously want to be removed. He does not want people to call a vote of no confidence for actions that are far more egregious by all standards than what Kurt Tibbetts would have done. And I remember at the time that there was a lot of dialogue and discussion that, Kurt was spending all his times in the bar rooms instead of running the country's business and that sort of thing. And that is what McKeeva Bush relied upon to have him removed. And he did remove him successfully. And then that gave the PPM government a lot of ammunition and to get organized and to be formed. And in fact, I think if my memory serves me correctly, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that is what actually got the PPM to be formed in the first place. And then they came back in the general election in 2005, almost took a clean sweep and removed McKeeva from leader of government business, and Kurt Tibbetts was returned to the position of leader of government business. So those are facts, folks. Those are facts. Marshall says, isn't him the Speaker of the House? Is he involved with the day-to-day issues of the government? Well, he is the third, as Speaker of the House, he is the third person in position of power in this country after the governor and after the leader of government business. He holds a very important role, obviously, as Speaker of the House when it comes to hearing motions and controlling, the Legislative Assembly and hearing debates and permitting the other members to even bring forward motions to the Legislative Assembly. So it is considered an extremely, important position. So, yeah, I mean, he's not a minister, but that does not take away from the importance of that position. So what's the difference from the last no confidence vote? Well, there's never been a no confidence vote against him. So last time Kenneth held ranks and they didn't bring a no confidence vote. Dean Shillette says, Kenneth, don't hold your breath waiting on that information. I mean, listen, a court case could take a year or more. By the time they're done with this, it'll be the next election anyway. So if he's waiting for that to happen, that's going to be a long wait. Done after Hurricane Ivan. No, this was actually before Hurricane Ivan, because Hurricane Ivan was 2004. This was in 2001 when he was removed from office. So Anne says facts. Cameron says we don't believe facts anymore. Well, listen, it's all online for you to go read. It happened. I remembered it happened. I just couldn't remember all of the details of exactly what went down. But yeah, it happened. So there you have it. I mean, the question then becomes, what standard are we holding our elected officials to when it comes to accountability, being held accountable for their own actions? Do you believe, let's just show by, yes and no responses here. Does anyone here believe that you have to be convicted of a criminal act in order for you to be removed from political office or even a position within the Legislative Assembly? What would it take? What would it take? If an assault isn't good enough, some people have said, oh, they want to hear from the victim. What do you need to hear from the victim for? She's made a police report. The police are investigating it. An incident obviously took place. The person involved as the assailant has written a letter of apology, apologizing for his actions. What is he apologizing for if nothing happened? So in his statement, Kenneth goes on to say that he's prepared to allow the authorities to take the necessary time to conclude their investigations before such a serious vote is called. And then he says, I'm guided by the voters of Georgetown Central. If they feel that there's enough information already available in the public domain that warrants a vote of no confidence on the speaker, then I am guided by their decision. Until that point, I will await further details that will bring better clarity to what transpired on February the 21st. Now, here's the interesting thing. Some of Kenneth's GTC, Georgetown Central, voters have commented on his social media posts when he put this up and said, Kenneth, we want you to vote no confidence. Not only that, but I've had some of them contact me and said, this is such a strange situation because traditionally speaking, Kenneth has always, let me just click on this here. He has always put himself forward as someone who, was guided by the opinions of the people. And in fact, he would reach out to his constituents and ask for their opinion before making a decision like this. And they said in this case, unlike other times, they had not heard from Kenneth. He had not reached out to them to gauge their opinion. This seems to have been a bit of a unilateral decision that was made. And then in the decision, he says, well, if they tell me to do it, then I'll be guided by them. And some of them have responded on his social media platform saying, we want you to do it. So I'm going to read some of the comments here that were on his page. Let me just see if I can bring them up here. So there were 41 comments on Kenneth's social media page, and people like Kent McTaggart commented saying that removing him from his seat in the LA is not stepping on anyone's rights as a citizen, nor the rights of their elected, of those who elected him, as you are here to do the people's work. McKeever's right as a citizen is being investigated by the RCIPS, and if he is found to infringe on the rights of another person, the court will judge him. The two actions, LA and court, are separate and apart from each other. The position you've taken is one of a representative of lesser standard, and I personally believe you are stronger than that, but however, I may be mistaken. Jeffrey Rankin said, judging from the comments on your other press release several days ago, I had a feeling you'd be making the vote you mentioned, whether you want to wait for the investigation to be completed, which is the right call in my eyes, or not. So he's actually in agreement. I think he might be the only person who's in agreement with this. J.A. Hart said a very, very interesting thing that got a lot of likes. Given that the Standards in Public Life Amendment Law 2016, Commencement Order 2020, does not come into effect until later this month, and there are no mechanisms in place to govern the action of elected officials, I feel the least, and I mean the least, action available is to revert to the Public Service Management Law 2007 revision, which governs civil servants. Whereas technically, MLAs are not civil servants, but as an elected official, you serve the citizens of this country. So I think it is fair for Section 5(1)(e) of the PSML to apply in this instance. It states that a public servant must not at any time engage in any activity that brings his ministry, portfolio, statutory authority, government company, the public service, or the government into disrepute. And by his own actions, words, and admission, this is exactly what the Speaker of the House has done. And there's quite a few people who agreed with that. Jasmine Rebecca says, I'm really glad that there are commentators above who know Caymanian law so well and have cited numerous legal reasons to remove Mr. Bush. I'm going to appeal on a personal note because to me, this is personal. You have two beautiful daughters who I never want to see have an experience like the one that I'm going to share below. And then she goes on to talk about something that happened to her when she was in college, again, with an elected official and someone in power. And she feels like this is akin to that, and that a lot of times these persons are not held accountable simply because of who they are. Amy Bodden says, Kenneth Bryan, don't be that guy. Very disappointed. So her comments were very brief. Mario Rankin weighed in. He says, nowhere in this statement did you mention the victim and what she might be dealing with. In fact, you didn't even acknowledge that there was an attack, and you focus only on a fair process to be played out for the speaker is unbelievable. Wow, actually. And then someone named Seymour Ramsey said that, what if the woman is lying? Which is interesting. Okay. So Tyrone makes a few comments, and Sasha says, as a voter of GTC, I'm asking you to vote no confidence on the speaker. Kenneth said, thank you for your feedback. Another voter, Wendy McIntosh, said, I agree. I'm also a GTC voter and would like to see no confidence vote from you, Mr. Bryan. And then I was actually commenting saying no consideration of his admitted mental health issues. That alone should make him resign. 9 years and you're still struggling and have not sought to get yourself the much needed help. Come on now. Charlene says it's time that there's a video proof. And if it's true that there's video proof and he admitted to the assault and also admitted to having mental health issues, then these factors alone should cause one to vote no confidence, regardless of whether or not an investigation is taking place. So then someone mentioned AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Someone named Brian said, stop your crap, Kenny, grow some balls. What if this was your child that was hit by this known drunk, or your child being grabbed and felt up by this man and then smile in your face and continue getting away with shit? The US has Trump, we got Bush. Another person, Nadia, says, I'm personally disappointed in your stance. I used to think you spoke a lot of sense and you stood for what was right. Now, sadly, I don't. You are no better than the rest of the gang. Luckily for you, I'm not your constituent, so I don't need to rely on my vote, but there will be many that will remember that you didn't have the courage to stand up for what is morally correct. So most of the comments were non-supportive. Lisa says, if you're unwilling to stand up to protect the weak and vulnerable, what does that say about us as a society? I'm saddened by the silence of our elected leaders. Please do what is right, cost it what it will. And there were a lot of people who commented. And there was actually a comment as well from his sister on this post. And a lot of people were very surprised that his sister Patricia made such a comment, because, I mean, we all know that Patricia is very vocal, so that's not what we mean. But normally, I think she's very supportive of family, and a lot of us have, supported Kenneth throughout. But in this instance, Patricia really, I think, felt strongly about the situation. And she actually said a lot, demonstrating her disappointment in this decision. And that, of course, again, being from his sister, did go viral. She says, I know what this will cost me, but I have never been the one to conform to others' opinions, particularly what is wrong. Kenneth, if you are doing this because you have the support of your constituents, I don't think that is correct, because I know almost all of your constituents and they would not be supportive of such a situation. Adding an investigation holds nothing compared to witnesses and I think she meant full admission by the perpetrator. While I separate and have entire compassion for Mr. Bush's reasoning for him drinking, I cannot separate the fact that a woman was assaulted. I grew up my entire childhood watching our mother being abused physically, including by your father. Domestic violence abuse is one situation I would never shut my mouth on. Mr. Bush admitted to the incident. That is all that is needed to have a no confidence vote and let the system play out. If he's not charged, then what? You're still going to support him? What if it was our mother who had gotten pushed this way? Well, this woman was more than pushed, but what if it was our mother who had gotten, right? There has to be a time when you must stand for something. Mr. Bush will understand. What will you tell your girls if they read this? With all going on in the rest of the world, and recognizing abuse towards women and making those who engage in such abuse accountable, I hope that this is not about politics and position. I also hope it doesn't cost you a re-election. Money and power will talk, but one day, if something hits home, then same will turn their backs. And like I've said on numerous occasions on this program and elsewhere, there is no honor amongst politicians, none at all. So the very ones that you're putting your neck on the chopping block for now to defend politically will eat your supper in the next election. They will turn coat on you, and we have seen it time and time again right here in the Cayman Islands. Anne says, how often is the House supposed to meet? I thought it was quarterly. Then that should be soon. I think they may actually be reconvening soon, but we don't have any exact dates. And with him being on leave, on this leave of absence, what does that mean? Like, who's going to actually be the Speaker of the House? We have no Deputy Speaker at the moment, and we have no Speaker of the House. The government has said nothing about filling those positions, even on a temporary basis. My understanding is there will be a legal challenge, potentially is what the speakers told people is, if you have an issue with this, take us to court, challenge it legally. And of course, we know that that's going to be a dragged out situation, having to hire QCs, et cetera, et cetera. So, people really do believe that they are above the law, and they're demonstrating that on so many different levels. Are elections taking place this year? Nope. Next year, 2021. This mix-up should be a crime against all Caymanians. Well, should be. So Kenneth Bryan is the only one holding out. Is that the only one holding out? Can they just overpass him and go ahead with a vote of no confidence? Well, no is the short answer. They need certain numbers. Again, the government is in a majority. So the only way that this would have been successful if everyone on the backbench, including Kenneth, were of one voice and together on this. So when we say that he is the sole person that is holding out, that is preventing this from happening, that is the truth. It is what it is. He said, in closing, it's imperative that I reiterate where I stand in a matter of this nature. So without ambiguity, I don't condone the abuse of women in any way, and would be hugely disappointed if it turns out to be the case that night in question. And again, I don't get that. Mr. Bush has admitted to this. I mean, it's weird to me that anyone still has doubts. If someone says they did it, a big man in his 60s, 65 years old, why would he be admitting to something that he didn't do? All right, we have a couple minutes left in the program. I've got some gift certificates from our corporate sponsors. We're so thankful to Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen and Burger King, who continue to sponsor Cayman Mall Road, and they give us gift certificates that we can share with you all. It's wonderful because I'll tell you what, last week we gave out some to our news group exclusively, and those persons came and collected those gift certificates. And the beautiful thing is that there were children who benefited from having a meal, having a little treat the last day of, the week that they were out of school, that ordinarily may not have been able to do so. So one person shared with me, we had given them several Burger King certificates, and they said that was actually able to feed 7 children who unfortunately, didn't have a lot else in their homes to eat. So it was like a nice treat for them to be able to go out, hang out at Burger King, and get some food. So I thank Mr. Gary Ruddy and the Burger King and Popeyes franchises, corporations locally, for being kind enough to give us some certificates. I want to give some of these gift certificates away tonight. So sometimes I just randomly pick people, and then sometimes I do it based on a question to see if you guys have been paying attention. So I'm going to put the question out there now. We'll do one for Instagram. So the first person to answer on Instagram will get a gift certificate of their choice. They can choose Popeyes or Burger King. And then we'll do one for Facebook. So the question is, and I'm going to put the question out there now. We mentioned earlier in the evening that Kurt Tibbetts was removed from office. 2-part question. What year did we say he was actually ousted from his position? And who else was removed with him? So it's a 2-part question. You've got to get both parts right. So the first part of the question is, what year was Kurt Tibbetts removed from office by McKeeva Bush for far less than assaulting a woman? What year was that? And who else was a minister that would have been removed by way of a vote of no confidence at that time as well? So I'm looking for a year first and then a name. So give me that, folks, and we'll see who wins this. So Marshall says, Kenneth should know firsthand when it comes to politicians that there's no loyalty amongst them. Look what Alden did him. That should be enough for him to do the right thing. And of course, the irony of that is that Alden removed him from his job, which he was relying upon to be able to feed his family. He removed him from that job way before that process, that legal process, was completed. So the standard that Kenneth is trying to use to give Mr. Bush the benefit of the doubt. Unfortunately for him, that same standard was not used for him. So Roger Ebanks said Edna and 2001. Roger, you are a winner on Facebook. Our Instagram feed just ended because Instagram only gives you 1 hour. Trust me, they're super strict. So I didn't see a response on Instagram, so I'm going to just restart the feed here. If the Instagram people can again tell me the answer, we'll pick a winner from Instagram as well. So Roger, congratulations. You are the winner. Please advise if you'd like Popeyes or Burger King, and then just private message me and I'll sort that out for you. So Donna, good try. You were close. 2004 and Edna Memorial. Trisha had the year, and Anne, you had it as well. But of course, quick with the fingers on the phone or computer was Roger. So Roger, congratulations. Charlene, no, it was not Alva Saku. Actually, Alva Saku was not in politics in 2001. That was some 19 years ago already. So Instagram, let me see here. Anthony says to add him. Let me see. I think he wants to join the show, but we're trying to get a winner on Instagram. If someone can tell me the year as well as the person that was removed from public office, ousted by McKeeva Bush in 2001. Come on, Instagram, folks. Let's get it.
Yo, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, what's up?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Awesome. What's on your mind?
I don't know. Do you want to talk about coronavirus?
Well, actually, we were talking a little bit about politics tonight. So let me ask you a political question.
Sure.
Do you think if someone is assaulted by a politician, that they should be, that person who assaulted them, should be removed from their position in politics?
Yeah, because like many people look up to them. So by them doing that, it's sort of influencing the public. So
yeah, because they're in a position of power, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate your participation.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Shout out to Alex and Natalia. Bye. Thanks.
Okay, cool. So shout out to a few of his friends. Thank you so much, Anthony, for joining in. So anybody on Instagram willing to get your shot at a gift certificate from Popeyes or Burger King, your choice. Again, the question is, what year, so you two-part question, what year did McKeeva Bush, Speaker of the House, remove Kurt Tibbetts and one other person? So what year did it happen, and who was the other person that was removed along with him? So Roger says that he's going to give his gift certificate to someone who actually needs it. That's awesome, Roger. Thank you so much. Cameron, who was the last person to be ousted? Actually, I think that was it. 2001. Oops, I just gave you the answer. Forgot Instagram people are still there. Okay, I just gave you the answer again. So 2001, yes. But the second part of it is who else with Kurt Tibbetts was removed that was like in a ministerial position. So that one you got to kind of have been listening to earlier. So yeah, I don't think it's happened that often, Cameron, to be honest. And it may have only been like once or twice. But McKeeva Bush did it in 2001 to Kurt Tibbetts. And again, it's just because he didn't like the way that he was running the country. And he claimed that he was going around to bars drinking and being a drunken stupor and blah, blah, blah. I'm not 100% sure that was I know that was the last time, yes. Because when they removed, let me think about this now. When they removed Bush himself, when he was arrested, I don't know if that was done by a vote of no confidence in the LA or if that was just his party doing it. But it could be, that would be the only other time possibly. So good. We have a winner here. Gonzalez, Dawn, Edna Moyle, 2001. You are a winner. Please message me, Dawn Gonzalez. Message me privately and you can pick Burger King or Popeyes. And again, thank you so much to our corporate sponsors who give us a lot of gift certificates to be able to give away. I'm going to check on that for you with some political historians and get back to you guys and let you know kind of what the position is. Because I can't honestly remember if technically they voted him out by way of no confidence, or if it was just like a party decision to move him out of the top position when he was arrested for misuse of government credit cards or something, which we should say that he got off that time as well. It was a jury trial and the jury allowed him to walk free. All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning into the program. It is Thursday. We wanted to quickly just acknowledge that we lost another young man yesterday to a vehicular death. Apparently the accident happened. It kind of went under radar. A lot of people didn't even know that this accident happened. But he's 25-year-old Michael McField from Northside. And this accident happened on the 25th. So last week, Tuesday, I think that would have been February the 25th at 4:00 in the morning. And it seems that his white Ford Ranger pickup truck actually ran into some bushes in the High Rock area. And yesterday, unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries. 25-year-old Michael McField of Northside. So we wanted to extend our condolences to Michael's family and his friends. Seems like he was a super nice guy from everything that I've heard. And you're welcome, Anthony. And it's really sad to lose someone at the age of 25. I understand he has 2 young children and had his entire life ahead of him. So most unfortunate. All right, folks, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks again for tuning into our program. We'll be here again Tuesday evening at 7:00. I'm working on something for you guys. We weren't able to pull it all together for today's show, but we're hoping to have a sexual abuse survivor come on the program soon and talk to the people of the Cayman Islands about what he has endured and, hopefully enlighten us for those of us who don't know what is involved with being a victim of that type of abuse in particular, and some of the things that he believes could be done to protect victims and keep perpetrators at bay. So have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you guys here again on Tuesday. And of course, any breaking news, we'll definitely bring it to you in between.
You don't know who I am, but I know all about you. I've come to talk to you tonight about the things I've seen you do. I've come to set the record straight. I've come to shine the light on you. Let me introduce myself.